This is the Human Network, where we explore real human connection in an artificial world. Brought to you by Global Mentorship Initiative.
Hi, and welcome to the Human Network. I'm John Browning, the CEO of Global Mentorship Initiative, and your host for this series. As technology becomes more embedded in our lives, one truth remains clear: nothing can replace the power of human connection. And so I'm very glad to be joined today by Justin Thenutai. He's the Vice President of HR for the Core AI division at Microsoft. Justin's been with Microsoft for 18 years, including his role as Chief People Officer at GitHub, and he's the perfect guest for this topic. Outside of work, he's passionate about empowering youth and serves on the board of Global Mentorship Initiative. Welcome, Justin.
John, thanks so much for having me this morning. I'm looking forward to it.
Justin, we've known each other now for over 5 years, and we met through Global Mentorship Initiative. And I wanted to start off by asking you, what first drew you to Global Mentorship Initiative, and what inspired you to take on a leadership role with the board?
Absolutely. We've known each other for a while now. And as you know, I've benefited greatly from mentorships in my life. And I have paid it forward in the workplace for the most part. But I was looking to make further impact outside, beyond, the company and into the broader community. So in summer of 2020, I was sitting at home in my home office, trying to figure out what that would look like. And I was researching mentorship programs. A lot of them were in person at the time and all shut down due to the pandemic. And I think coincidentally, or maybe not coincidentally, maybe it was fate. You sent me a mail in the summer of 2020, asking if I'd be interested in being a mentor. And I was intrigued. I was interested, but I didn't respond to you. I think at the time I was really kind of figuring out, do I have enough time to actually commit to some form of mentorship? And at the time, while I was interested, I didn't hit the reply button. You were persistent. You followed up with me. I got a mail from you 2 months later. And at that point, I was ready to go. An hour a week is not insignificant, but it was one where, as I looked at my calendar, I was primed and ready to go. So I joined. I joined up. You guys signed me a mentor, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I remember when you first replied and the message, and I thought, wow, that would be wonderful to have Justin on the team as being a mentor. And you started out as a mentor working with a student in the United States, in fact. And who'd have thought that from that point on, we now have over 2,000 Microsoft employees who are now mentors in the program. And it's just been a wonderful experience and partnership with them. But what then caused you to want to do more with and become a member of the board?
As I took my role as a mentor and I got a sense for the full program and the content that you were providing at the time. And I just saw the opportunity, how easy it was for someone to snap in. You didn't have to be particularly technical at anything, but if you had some form of business experience, all that content was very relevant. How you leverage LinkedIn, how you think about interviewing, how you think of yourself as an employee in a corporate setting and think about performance. And so that content was very natural for me personally. And I could see that being pretty easy for most people to snap into. And so seeing that, I saw the opportunity. I remember saying, John, if you need any help,
exactly,
I'm happy to lean in. And you invited me to the advisory board initially, the advisory council. And then eventually you and the board invited me to join, which I graciously accepted and was really excited to be able to join there. But seeing the impact that one mentorship relationship can make, and seeing the ability for GMI to service thousands of these types of relationships and networks was just, I saw the future, and it was an honor to be able to serve in that capacity on the board.
Yeah, it's been an incredible ride over 5 years to date. So far, we've had over 14,000 students join the program. Just incredible. Yeah. But I want to shift gears here and talk about human connection in this age of AI. And so today's world's increasingly shaped by artificial intelligence and new technologies, and yet human connection is so important. What does human connection in this space mean to you?
Yeah, well, you put aside AI, technology in general has amazing potential and huge use cases. It connects you to anyone, anywhere, and puts so much information at your fingertips. That technology, while amazing, also has the risk of shifting our behaviors and how we communicate, how we interact, how we engage. And so it's important to remember, while technology is incredible in terms of being able to assist and create the facilitation of that connection, we can't lose sight of the human connection. And AI is no different. AI, I think of as assisting us and doing a number of use cases. But I think the differentiation around human connection, like being able to effectively verbally and your written communication, how you build relationships, that EQ piece, I think is tremendously important. So AI is not a replacement to connection. In fact, you need those two in tandem, I think, to maximize the potential in the future.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I wanted to ask you, thinking about your leadership journey and where human connection might have profoundly impacted a decision or an outcome.
Yeah, so I remember this was probably my first job out of school, and I worked for a recruiting firm that had two very distinct populations. One was former senior executives that played the role of business development, relationship management, the folks that had been kind of in the workplace for a while. And on the flip side of that, a very early in career population, myself being part of that was doing the fulfillment of recruiting. There was one of the executives, former executives that worked in retail at one point, but was now doing this executive recruiting thing that I got paired up with, and he naturally just took me under his wing. He was very, like, one of the things I really appreciated was it took a little while to actually get there, but he would give me the feedback on what I did well, but also where I could improve. He actually created like a safe space for me too, to just like talk things through, and I could learn from him about his experiences. And it really built up my confidence in the workplace, in a place where, I was a newbie and, still trying to figure things out. And so that connection with him, his investments in me, really shaped my life and my career, and has just really reminded me, every instance to constant, like, there's an opportunity for me to learn from different people, but also there's an opportunity for me to give back. And so that's what has also fueled, my connection to mentorship.
We have similar stories about early in our careers and being shaped by an informal mentor. My first boss at Microsoft, when I started in 1990, and he was only a couple of years ahead of me in his career, but I was fresh out of college and I knew nothing. And he sort of took me under his wing and he said, "Okay, this is how you write a good communication email. This is what you expect to do in a project management meeting." And I didn't realize it at that point, but I was being mentored by somebody who really understood human connections, and it stuck with me ever since. And I think it had a profound impact on my journey. So I've always appreciated that. So let's talk about the impact of AI. It's making us more connected, or is it making us more isolated? What's your feelings on where we are right now with, let's say, this type of technology and AI?
There are amazing use cases for AI. And like I mentioned before, technology has the ability to facilitate connection, to help with preparing people for assisting in a lot of different things there. It doesn't replace human connection, and that is a real risk. I think, like, there's a tendency for these days people to rely on, like, it doesn't replace a person, but the engagement, the communication, learning from AI and assistive technology, I think it's important to remember the distinction from there. And I think the risk in that potentially is people not connecting with humans, and I think that's just a reminder to all of us that it should assist. It doesn't replace it assists. And so when I think about my own like communication, how I engage, like a lot of times I leverage AI as an assistive tool to help with my own communications.
Hmm.
Hey, reflect on, what I could do better. Are there things I need to replace? Help me prompt some stuff. And so, that's not like a replacement of a human where we don't talk to each other and just, bots are just communicating on our behalf back and forth.
Yes.
But rather, it helps me frame things. And it's important to remember like the human component of relationship building, of communication, of connection remains pretty key.
I'm glad you said it like that, because one thing I think we're learning as a society over the last 20 years is you can have 1,000 followers on social media or 1,000 friends, and yet half of us still say that we're lonely. And about half of us say that our relationships are not meaningful. So this concept of having these virtual connections without actually talking, seeing these people, it's not fulfilling our need for human interaction.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we continually have to be mindful about as we go on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
The basic, I mean, I think the way I think of it is AI technology assist us in amazing ways,
Yeah.
but it's important to remember the basics.
Mhm.
The basics of communication and networking, relationship building. Those I don't think will ever not be important. And so again, it's not a replacement. It's assistive and it's additive for us.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's talk about AI and today's workforce. As AI transforms the nature of work, what strategies do you believe are essential to make sure people continue to feel valued and especially connected?
John, I think it's really important for us to remember those basics. Communication, connection, networking, those are foundational. And ultimately, it makes the difference between a great mentorship, a great relationship, a great connection versus, an interaction. And so, while we must remain proficient with AI, we have to be curious. We have to learn about it. We have to be able to leverage it. Those basic and foundational components, connection, communication, EQ, networking are incredibly important. And so that connection there creates an ability for people to stay at the center, and not go into a place where they're not they're not feeling the connection value.
Right. It's like in today's AI world, it's our humanity that's really our greatest strength to make all of this happen. Yeah. So let me ask you about your work at Microsoft. How do you prepare your team to stay human-centered while working with all of these core AI technologies?
Yeah, absolutely. So Core AI, the mission of our division is to enable developers to shape the future with AI. And so our audience is the developer community. Something that remains key to us is the connection to customer and the customer voice. And so that's really something that we reinforce. It's part of our culture and way of working. And so listening to the customer, the human behind, like the words there and the feedback that we get, that remains key. As we ramp people up in the space of AI, if we're going to support the world with AI and developers with AI, we also have to be proficient. And so some of the things that we're doing is making sure that we're keeping our folks up to speed. And so as we think about just like our AI journey internally, it's making sure that we are proactively using it. And so we don't want to be a lagger. We don't want to be a follower. We actually want to be out in front and proactively use the technologies, innovate, create, test, break, but really kind of be at the forefront. And so using it proactively is important. Becoming fluent in the technology is important too. So not only are we doing it proactively, we have to get really good at it. We have to create those best case scenarios that we test, and so being proactive and also being fluent at it is important. We can't create these great ideas and then not share them. And so sharing the learnings is the third component of our AI strategy internally. So create these amazing use cases and make them go viral. So it's one thing to build yourself. It's one thing to do it proactively. The third component is make sure that you're telling other people about it, so we can all learn from that. And the fourth component is using our technology responsibly. And so it's important for us to maintain, responsible AI and privacy standards. That's really also critical to our AI strategy.
Wonderful. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's people that decide to buy products and services. It's not the AI components behind them. So we're always working with humans in this mix. So Justin, looking ahead, what trends do you expect in corporate social responsibility? And how can these organizations integrate these practices into their strategies?
I'll use Microsoft, I think, as an example where I think you created a organic groundswell of people finding out about GMI, signing up for mentorships, which paved the way for Microsoft as an organization to get directly involved and support GMI in a different capacity. So it's been amazing to see, more than 2,000 Microsoft employees join the GMI trend of mentorship, and that's been really amazing to see.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
So I would just encourage, companies, employees to really look at mentorship as an avenue that they can impact both individually, an individual employee and a corporate organization can both have that amazing impact there. On the AI side, I'd say, use AI, use it responsibly, make sure that your workforce is skilled for it, and continue to support mentorship both within the workforce that they have and also in the broader community. And leveraging an organization like GMI could be tremendously beneficial for them.
You've mentored a lot of people inside GMI and outside, and you've led a lot of teams, large teams. How has mentorship shaped your own career?
I look at mentorship as a mutually beneficial relationship that's established. As a mentor, you have the ability to share your experiences, the learnings so people can take those and also learn from them and sort of figure out what will help them, as they chart their future. As a mentor, I also gain something from it. So it's not just a purely selfless thing. Signing up as a mentor and ultimately, going through and taking a mentee through the process there, I learn a tremendous amount as well. And so, one of the things that I think it's important too, as someone who's investing time, is like, what do you get from it as well? And for me, it's such a rich way of gaining insight into someone else's experience. I've lived through a certain period of time. I know a certain element of how the world has evolved and the technology I use. And there's another cohort of people, another generation of folks that I continue to learn from as well. And so, for me personally, it's a rewarding thing giving back, because it's not hard. It's not hard for me to share the stories that I already have, the experiences that I have. And as a mentor, I also gain an incredible amount of insight from mentees that share their life experiences and hone in a little bit more around how I should be thinking about the future workforce and how I apply that to my own job.
I gotta say, what you just described about you getting as much out of it as the students is, I get this feedback every day. I hear from students and mentors about how mentorship has changed their lives. But it's always interesting to hear about the accountant in Denver who's working with a student in Rwanda who said that this experience has changed their lives and given them a different perspective. And they always want to join for another mentorship. So we're not just helping students get their first job. We're helping people establish that human connection that they otherwise might not have had a chance to do. So Justin, what advice would you give to someone who wants to be a mentor, but they feel they don't have enough time or they don't have the experience to be a mentor?
Not having enough time or feeling like you don't have enough time is real. In a world where we have so much to do in our lives at home, in the workplace, the connections, personal connections you have. There's so much that we already do. And so it's not insignificant, to give any amount of time to something beyond some of the things that you already sort of have. Um, Listen, like, people may not have the ability to become a mentor right away, but they can still support GMI
Mhm.
or other mentorship programs through support through donations. That was something that I have often done too, where I don't have time, and so
Mhm.
my replacement to that is, like, if I can fund like 5 mentorships or different connections, while other mentors take the baton there, great. And then at some point, it might be the very first time you hear about GMI. It might be the second email you get from you. But at some point, as you look through, 1 hour a week for a few months to impact a mentee becomes a priority and something that you can manage. And that's where I encourage people to sign up.
Mhm.
We've got hundreds of mentees that are looking for a mentor to be able to help, teach and guide and learn from. And I know people, I talk to folks in the workplace around my network, and mentorship is something that's on a lot of people's minds, but I think it's just finding that right sweet spot of time to sign up. And I just encourage folks, whether you think you have it or not, get curious about it. And when it comes up, find that moment and lean in when you're ready.
Yeah, I couldn't add anything else to that, to say that once you have become a mentor, it will probably change your life. It's something that you will realize a way that you can make a difference. And that's why we have so many people that might be hesitant in their first mentorship that immediately sign up for a second and third. And we've got mentors now that have had over 14 mentorships. And some at Microsoft are way up there in those numbers as well. I think you don't know what you're missing until you have an opportunity to make a difference for someone personally. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about career advice in this age of AI, in this revolution. For someone that's just starting in their career, especially if they don't have a technical background, what advice would you give them?
AI, I think, is here to stay. And so I think one piece of advice I'd give to anyone is to get curious about it, learn about the use cases, test it, and see how it can help you
Mhm.
in your ways of working and learning, and whatever it is that you can. So I just encourage people to not see it as something that other people are doing, but actually get curious and test it out for yourself. So that's one avenue. Um, the other is, I mentioned this a couple times too. Those foundational basics are meaningful. The What will differentiate people in the future state is going to be on how they connect with people, how
Mhm. The
effectively
soft skill.
they're able. The soft skills are so incredibly important, and so those don't go away. In fact, they become even more important. We don't often get like the phone call anymore with like a human voice on the other end. A lot of times we sort of like reply through text instead, to
Mhm.
return a phone call. And, that's just, I get it. Like, it's just in the mode of how we work sometimes and how we interact and communicate with folks. But it's important not to forget that those are skills that have to be built. And in order to build them, you have to practice them.
Mhm.
And so it's not like you're going to go into an interview and answer questions for the first time and hope to nail something.
Mhm.
You have to practice those things. You have to tell your story, tens of hundreds of times in order to refine it. And that practice, I think, makes the difference. And so, if you want to get good at playing music, if you want to get great at a sport, you practice. And so those elements of communication, written, verbal, networking, interacting with people, it may not feel natural. It may feel actually very awkward initially, but
Mhm.
it's something that with practice, you ultimately, you go from not being good at it to not being bad at it. And then ultimately you get better and better. I remember, when I started my career in recruiting, I was I was afraid to talk to people on the phone. I was afraid of rejection, and my boss did not mind that because he didn't care. He made me make those calls, and after
Mhm.
100 calls, I got a lot more. I got a lot more proficient at communicating with people. I got more okay with people saying no, and so that practice is what helped build my craft and my skill. And this is no different for anyone else entering kind of that stage of career where with practice
Mhm.
people can get very good at that too.
Yeah, this is something that we teach our students. We spend 2 sessions on interviewing skills and teaching them an interviewing technique. But really, you're telling your story. And of course, you're answering questions about your qualifications, but all through that is woven your story. And so we really do have to be good storytellers, even in a job interview. I wanted to ask you about um, how jobs are changing as a result of this new technology. For example, a software engineer is probably not just writing code all day anymore. How do you see that role as AI gets more integrated into companies?
Yeah, when I think of, I'll use, I'll kind of answer the software engineer kind of one, and then perhaps more broadly. Um, AI can enable a lot of things. It doesn't sort of it can replace some certain tasks, but it's there to make someone effective, productive, and really maximize their output. And so when I think about a software engineer leveraging, AI to code, um, there's these elements of like if something could add, like and do the work of writing that code there, what would you do in the meantime?
Mhm.
It might be that you, as an engineer, think about product in a different way. So rather than just building it, you're thinking about the design of it. You're thinking about how, there's a more customer orientation. So I think the way that it could shape, engineering in the future is you become a little bit more multifaceted,
Mhm.
ability to
Mhm.
expand on your impact. And so you see in small companies, people wear a lot of hats. You could also look at that in that manner. I'm not predicting that as a case, but I think there's like,
Yeah.
if you had extra time, what would you use it for?
Mhm.
And I think within software engineering, it could be I'll just pound out more code, all the way to I can shape products in a different way as
Mm.
well.
Mhm.
When I think more generally, I think the same concepts exist as well. So whether it's marketing or HR or like sales, there's a lot of different ways that you can leverage the technology. But if it saves you time, what would you rather be doing?
Mhm.
And so I think about it from just my own craft and human resources. If I didn't have to do XYZ things, I would be in with the business thinking about the org design, thinking about talent strategies, and I'd be shifting that time to be spent on the more strategic initiatives that I find to be the most important.
Mhm.
And so that's the way I kind of look at like how jobs changed there. And so me without AI assisting me versus me with it, I find I could be a lot more productive. I could be a lot more impactful as well. And so it just changes the way that I would be able to spend my time and do things that I think matter most.
So, do you feel like today's universities and colleges are starting to equip, let's say, software engineers for this new job role that they're going to play as a result of the AI revolution?
It's an evolving landscape, John. Like it literally, it's changing every day. I think what I would hope for though is that we are incorporating with an AI kind of mindset first on in terms of how we do work. And so we think about process flows that have existed for 20, 30, 40 years of how things operate there. I
Mhm.
think it's an opportunity for us to really kind of break through like, what if that didn't have to exist anymore? If we were to recreate like how things get done, what would we do differently? So when I think about just like the universities, like how they teach right now, I hope we are, and I'm seeing it, right? Like
Mhm.
we are
Mhm.
incorporating a lot more content related to that. And so I'm encouraged by like, people learning that space there. But like I think it really challenges sort of the norms of like what we're used to and sort of what we want to build in the future. So
Right. And it causes us to think about somebody who is typically in a heads down type of a role, like a software engineer, to need to broaden those skills. So maybe they need to be taking some communications classes in university and other skills, writing classes, to help them make the most out of their role, because of what we're in the AI revolution now. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Justin, that's a great way to wrap this up. Some really good insights on how we can stay focused on human connection while we implement these new technologies. I appreciate the work you've done with GMI, from mentoring students to helping shape the strategy behind this fast-growing nonprofit, and especially for being a great mentor to me when I really needed it.
Well, John, it continues to be an honor and a pleasure working with you on GMI, and thanks for having me here.
And thank you for watching today.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of The Human Network. If you'd like to get involved with Global Mentorship Initiative, please reach out to us at globalmentorship.org.